Hello and welcome to another little short video. This one is for my jewelry students where we're using Adobe Illustrator to draw up some ring profiles and silhouettes and then extrude them out so that we can see how they would look with some very basic materials and shading applied to them. So we're going to start off drawing some basic ring silhouettes like these and then turning them into 3D forms and then using some of the newer effects inside of Illustrator to make these. So if I move over here, we'll start with drawing some very basic silhouettes like these or just simple ring forms, and then using some of the tools inside of Illustrator like the shape builder or pathfinder to work with these. You can take some of your drawings, so from your sketchbooks, bring them in as an image and use them as a reference for this. So I'm going to start off with making my document. In this case, I'm going to set it up for A3. So I'll go over to the print section, find A3, set it up for landscape, just so it fits the screen a little bit easier, and then swap my units over to millimeters, and that's fine. If you're doing a number of these, you could create a number of artboards so that you have a little bit of space to work with from the get-go. So I'll create this. And now I'm going to draw a circle for my finger size. Now my size is T1/4. And if you don't know your ring size, you can use a piece of paper and wrap it around your finger and mark a line on it. And that will give you your circumference. And then you can use that to convert it into a diameter, as that's the units that Illustrator is going to need. So if I scroll down, if you know your size from your different regions, so whether it's UK or American or German or so on, different sizes, you can work those out. I'm down here, T1/4, so T1/2, so that's 19.84. So I'll swap back over to Illustrator, grab my ellipse tool, and the shortcut for that is L. If I click on my artboard, this will immediately ask me to draw a circle from units. So I pop in my diameter, which is 19.84, and then choose OK. And that gives me this little piece here. So Z for zoom, zoom in, and I might as well make a few copies of this, or at least one other. I'll just pop it over here. Hold the Alt or Option key while you're left clicking, holding and dragging, and that will make your copy. And if I want to keep it in alignment, just hold the Shift key. So I'll start with this one. I'm going to offset it to make the outside part for the ring. I will do a very basic one for this one with just like a box-like section on the top. So while I have it selected, offset that part. This will bring out the offset panel options. So at the moment, it's 3.528 millimeters. You can pop your cursor in there and increase it or decrease it, and you can get smaller units. So if you wanted 3.25, you can just pop in there and just click away from it so that your preview is showing you exactly how that is. So I'm happy with that. I'll choose OK. Some of these rings that we're drawing and making up, we're making these for laser cutting. So we need to make sure that they have a little bit of material here. Otherwise, they are liable to collapse when we put them on our finger and so on. Swap back for the rectangle tool. You can see it's starting to use these smart guides, these magenta guides. So I can use these to highlight, for example, here, the anchor point on this side and the anchor point on this side to draw it out. And I want to make sure that these are in perfect alignment. So if I zoom in, you can see they are indeed sitting on the exact same spot. So once I have that, now I'm going to use Illustrator's either Pathfinder tools or the shape builder, which might be a little bit easier in this case. So if I select everything, go over and grab my shape builder, and the shortcut for this, as you can see in the little preview, is Shift M. So if I left click and hold inside of these areas, it's going to combine these and get rid of the overlaps. Now we need to knock away this part here. So if I hold the Alt or Option key, this will turn it from adding these together into a subtraction. So it's going to take this away. And that's our first ring silhouette, kind of mostly made. At the moment, the object has no fill. It has a white fill. We can't really see that on the artboard here, so we're going to change that and swap it around so it has, for example, a black fill. We'll get rid of the stroke on it, so we're only dealing with the fill color for this. Bring the fill color back into the front, and if we wanted to give an approximation for kind of a silvery kind of ring, we could drop this down in tonal value for this. And that is our first kind of base form. I would recommend you take a couple of copies of this at this point so that you can experiment with these, so you don't have to keep redrawing the same form again and again. So take a couple of copies here, and then we can kind of harvest from these. So let's go back and focus on this one. And if we want to turn this as it was into that extruded 3D form, just have your object selected, just that selected, no other objects, and then go up to the effects menu, 3D and materials, and we want the new extrude and bevel, which is this new 3D workspace to work with. It's going to bring you into this piece here, which is going to show you, you know, different options that you can make your object. So whether it's a flat plane, in this case, an extrusion, we could do revolutions if we were doing kind of lathe-like forms, pieces that would be made on a lathe. We're dealing with this with a laser cutter, which is only going to cut out vertically from the object. But we could also get an approximation of how this might look if we were laser cutting out and using these for a fly press mold and so on. Here we can adjust the depth. So if we're thinking that it's made in, you know, like a 3mm or a 6mm acrylic, some of these things are more visually representative. So you have to take into account yourself how that depth is looking with your object. As you can see here, it's set to 14mm, but it looks actually closer to what we have with the 8mm acrylic. So on. You can add visual bevels and other pieces onto these. So if you are thinking about working these out and extruding the distance or changing the extrusion distance from the edge, as well as the height for this. So whether it's very chiseled hard or at a low angle for that. And then whether you are chiseling and beveling that on both sides. The cool thing about this is that these forms are actual 3D models, so we could export these for 3D printing as well, and we could stack up the depthing on these and how far those are coming in and out from each other. So if you were wanting to do a really cool kind of repetitive piece onto your form. At the moment, I'm not going to do anything like that. I'm just going to turn that back off and leave it as a very simple plain form for this. Some of the menus here are quite long, so make sure that you do scroll all the way down and see if there's some other settings you want. I'm quite happy with the view that we have here, but if you were looking for isometric views or particular off-axis, front, left, right, and so on for your rendering, you could swap in between these. And likewise, you could just rotate yourself around in different planes so that you can get the view of your object that you're looking for. So I'm just going to go back to an off-axis front. And then the next tab is for your materials. This is where, at the moment, we have this very simple gray material that we've popped onto it. We could, use any of the other substance materials and the Adobe materials here. There are 2 links to find more materials. Some of these you need to have a specific subscription for this. Because I'm using the educational subscription, we don't get some of these materials, but we do get the community-based materials. So you can click on this one and then go and find those. But you can also bring in other images and properties and make them yourself. So for example, here, this is, it's looking very matte, we can bring this down in roughness and then bring up the metallicness. So this will turn it into a very shiny metallic-like material. It has no, we don't have any lights turned on at the moment, so it looks a little bit odd. So it's kind of partly cart before the horse kind of thing, that we're applying materials, but we don't have any lighting. We'll get to that in the next little tab for this. But again, just make sure that you have a look at the menu, because some of these, again, can get really quite long, and there are other little pieces that are hidden below here. So we go into the next section and turn on lighting. And here we can see where the light's coming from. Now, at the moment, we're not seeing any lighting because we don't have our shadows turned on. So we turn on our shadows, and again, scroll down and have a look at this. So at the moment, this is looking like it's attached to a wall. I'm going to change that and put it below the object, so we can imagine that our ring is actually standing up, being presented to us on a table. There are a couple of other options here which are really helpful. So distance from the object. So you can shift your shadows away if you need to isolate your object from its shadow. So you're looking to get a really nice rendering from your object, but you don't want your shadow interfering with it. Shadow bounds is how far away the shadows will get rendered from your object. So in this case, you know, having it clipped off here doesn't look really so well. So I'm going to increase that so that all of the shadow is actually rendered from this object. Here, I'm just going to rotate my light around so that my light source is coming from more in front of my object, and that is going to drop this really nice soft shadow behind the object. Lastly, to get Illustrator to calculate the light bounces and the ray tracing for this, you go up to this section here, and then you turn on your ray tracing, and then you can set your quality settings. So here is where, if you set it up to high and you click on render, you may have to wait a few moments for your computer to catch up and do the rendering for this. You can see we're getting some really nice reflectance from these and so on. Just bear in mind that you have to select your object so that you can enable each of these options. So if I wanted to rotate the light around and maybe get a little bit of different reflectance in here and try and pick up a little bit more of what's happening on it, again, take into account those shadow bounds. So I'd increase that a little bit further so I don't accidentally clip off another little piece with these. And you get your object like that. So that's how you would take your very simple 2D form and 2D cutout and turn it into a render like this. Now, at the moment, this is a live effect, so I can keep continually going back in here to adjust and change this. I don't want this. I'm quite happy with the rendering as is. So I'm going to go up to my object menu and expand this. This will stop this being a live effect and stop my computer, my graphics card kind of, you know, warming up every few moments. I move something around as it tries to recalculate the lighting for this. So I'm just going to leave it as this. This one is the kind of, is really the match for this object. So I'm going to copy those, and I'm going to move on to this artboard down here. I'm just going to paste them in place here, and then just maybe pop those into the top left hand corner, and then go on and do something slightly more advanced and different with this. So you've seen in that earlier file that I had some organic shapes or wavy lines and other things in here. So this is where I might experiment with these things. So again, use your Alt or Option key while you're clicking and dragging to make a copy. So I could, you know, cut a section out of this. You can use your direct select tool to pick up your anchor points and move them around. So if you're looking to make it kind of a more flared or a tapering ring and so on, you can move these around and adjust them. Do use some guidelines. So to get out your guidelines, it's Control-or, and then that will bring out these ruler guides on the side, and then you can bring them out and line them up to center of your object and so on. And then I could make half of the ring cut it in half, and then match it around so I don't have to worry about, accidentally having this one a fraction of a millimeter further away and so on. So I could use that shape builder again. And while I have all of these selected, I can then use the Alt key to remove from it. It's not seeing the guideline as an object, so I would need to grab a rectangle or some other shape here and then pop it on top to divide it up. Just make sure that it is snapping to those guidelines. Otherwise, you're going to get something that isn't quite as you're expecting. So if I use my Alt key, I can now cut that away. And then I have this piece here. I can take a copy of it and flip it around, or I can use the reflect tool. So if I just wanted to copy and move it, hold the Alt key while clicking and dragging it. I can then use my properties panel to flip it left to right. And then again, just bring that back and reunite it. So select the two, use my shape builder, and then drag between them and then combine those together. So they form that one now ring form. And again, I could extrude it. But, that's some basic things. I could then start to think about drawing and cutting pieces out of it. So if I use the pen tool, and I could just draw some zigzags. So something like that. Because it's on the fill color, you can see that I am getting the this kind of webbing and skinning effect happening. So I'm just going to make sure that that is on the stroke color instead. Can select those two, and again go into my shape builder, hold my Alt key to subtract those, and I can do the same with the extra strokes that are on this. Now I have something like this. I could do things with circles and other pieces being cut and scooped out of it. So go over and grab my ellipse tool, and I could, make some ears or other pieces for this. So I could pop something like that. I want to reflect that onto this side. So under here, you have the rotate tool, the scale, and the reflect tool. The shortcut for the reflect tool is the O key. So I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key and then left click, and it's going to use that as my reference point, and then I can choose whether I'm reflecting it horizontally or vertically. In this case, I want it as so, and then copy so that I have those two pieces here. And now I could just, again, swap that over to the stroke color so that I can see this through my ring. And I'm just going to center these up roughly vertically on this. And I'm going to use this to cut out from here. So select the whole thing, use my shape builder, hold down the Alt key to subtract this. Just use the shape builder as is to combine these, and then go back to using the Alt key to subtract these from it. So I've made this kind of, little, almost like bat ears or cat ears or so on. If you want to move these, you're thinking, oh my goodness, they are miles away from this. Use your direct select tool, so the white arrow. You can select all of those anchor points and then hold your shift key so it stays in alignment. Otherwise, it might skew left or right. So just hold your shift key and then you can bring those down. If you wanted to make areas more or less curvy or bendier, you have these round corner options. You can select one individually by holding the left mouse button and clicking on that directly. You can select more than one at a time using the shift key. So if I wanted to round these two to the same degree at the same time, just click on one, hold shift, and click on the other one, and so on. Okay, and now I have my my ring form. Sometimes you'll get pieces like this, where you have some leftover pieces where you've used the shape builder to combine and add and subtract shapes. just always move your shape to one side to just check if you've left anything, kind of debris or other pieces underneath and so on. You could definitely do some more organic forms and other pieces with this. So if you can remember back to one of those drawings that that I was showing in the original file here, it had a sketchbook and a kind of an egg-shaped ring with a zigzag kind of lightning bolts cut out of it. So if I wanted to make something like that, I would select my circle. I'll just offset it to make the thickness that I would imagine this. So let's say 5 mil, which is okay. I can use my direct select tool to pick up that anchor point at the top and then hold my shift key to bring this up. Now, if I want to bring this up to kind of round up the top and so on, this is where I may need a ruler guide to match where this handle is going. So if I go over here to this side, grab this anchor point, I know that I want that handle vertically to hit that guide as well. So it's symmetrical. Again, sometimes you might find it's just easier to draw half of the form and then reflect it around. So you're not kind of doubling up on your work. So now I want to do a little zigzag or a lightning bolt shape. So grab your pen tool. And at the moment, I don't have any stroke or fill. So I'm just going to swap that over so that I have the default colors. So a black stroke, and then I'm going to take away the white fill on that, so I don't get any of that webbing that was happening the last time. So something along these lines. So a little simple lightning bolt effect. So like that. And now I want to knock that away from this. So I'll select it. Shift M for my shape builder. Hold Alt so that I'm subtracting, and then drag over those lines there to get rid of it. Thanks, Ina, for your shouting. Thank you kindly. I just have to re-record that little piece. I'm almost done with this. Not to worry. I'll be only a few moments. Don't worry. I'm not super mad at you. So let me know when you're done. So now I'll use the shape builder tool to combine the elements that I want and get rid of the bits that I don't want. So make sure you have the whole thing selected. So the inside of the ring as well as the outside. Shift M, hold the Alt key, and then left click and drag over the bits that you want to knock away. For example, here and here. And then click on the areas that you want to combine into one simple path. So if I have it selected, then I can swap that fill color around. Then you can see how this would look like this. Okay. And again, I just move it over to one side so I can make sure that I haven't left any remnants of some little paths or other piece on it. So this time, instead of applying a gray color and so on, we'll just use one of the other materials that we have here. So I'll bring back out the 3D materials panel, select my object, set it to extrude, and I'll use slightly thinner. It's a little bit hard to see it with the black on the object, but we'll go straight over into the material section and swap this, say, for example, a gold material. Now, when you have a material that you have imported from Substance or Adobe directly, there are a couple of things to look out for here. So I'm just having a look through, and we have brass and copper foil and so on, gold natural. But this kind of gold foil is fine for what we're doing. The texture size, this is, depending on the quality of this will depend on your raster setting. So when we set up our file, it was set to 300 ppi. So quite high resolution, but we can increase that further. So we'll use a much higher texture image for this. The repeating, this is the number of repeats that this object is going to have for this. So if I increase this, it's going to repeat almost twice as many times now. So it'll get a much finer version of the foiling and the texture that's appearing on the surface of this object. We can look at the metallicness and the roughness and all of these. There's a whole bunch of detail settings that we could change in this. But most importantly, if you just wanted to change from a yellow gold to a rose gold, we can just bring this down a little bit, and then we'll turn it from this yellow gold into a rose gold kind of finish for these. Again, go over into the lighting section, scroll down to the bottom part and turn on shadows. And then I want this not against a wall, but almost on a tabletop. So shadows below. And then rotate this around so it's facing behind the object. So we get some nice shadow casts on these. Make sure the shadow bounds aren't being clipped off. So increase these as you need them. You don't need to increase them all the way to the maximum because you'll get a kind of a big, large blank area in your file that you'll keep accidentally possibly selecting your object with. So we'll just make it only as large as really needed for this. You can increase and decrease the softness of the shadows. So if you want them to be quite soft or quite hard, you can adjust that. And again, just make sure to turn on your ray tracing to render it. And this is usually where your computer kind of, as you've seen when I changed one of the settings a few moments ago, that your computer kind of lags out a little bit where it's kind of trying to catch up with the calculations for these, for both the materials and the reflections and so on. So just make sure to hit on the render. And now we get this lovely rendered image of I'm going to bin it. That will give me back to the original object. In this case, I may want to swap that from this color. Let's go and grab our swatches. So F5, and then use something that kind of maybe represents this a little bit more closely, or just a very simple light gray, 30% or so on. Okay. So here I would take this and go up to my object menu and then expand the appearance of this. So it's no longer a live effect, but it's the drawing of this shape. And then I would repeat that a couple of times for the other versions for this. Okay. So you take a form just like that. You can use it as your base form, cut into it and rework it. You have your ring size. You can add pieces to the top and bottom. You can subtract some pieces out of it. But that's in essence all you would need for this. This is your nice, really visual, but this is the piece that you would actually send to the laser cutter for cutting itself. Okay, thank you. See you in the next one.